Welcome to Skip the Queue, a podcast for people working in or working with visitor attractions. I'm your host, Cate Milton. Each episode, I speak with industry experts from the attractions world. In today's episode, I speak with Cate Milton, Customer Experience Programme Officer at Historic Royal Palaces. Cate shares her infectious passion for customer experience and talks us through the 6-month customer journey mapping exercise they carried out with KPMG. If you like what you hear, subscribe on all the usual channels by searching Skip the Queue. Cate, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I'm really excited to speak to you.
Thank you so much. I'm just excited to speak about anything that's customer experience. So I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be a good chat then. But first of all, I have to ask you some icebreaker questions so we don't get to chat about customer experience quite yet. I'm going to ask you what your favourite breakfast food is.
Oh my God, that's a curveball. I don't really do breakfast.
Oh.
I'm like, I get up in the morning and I feel like it's way too early for my stomach to be dealing with anything like food. So I think if I'm being good, then it's usually like a yogurt or some raisins, or that makes me sound a lot healthier than I am.
Oh my goodness, doesn't it?
I mean, today it was a blueberry muffin, so it very much depends what's nearby. Yesterday it was cheeselets. So yeah, I hope my mum doesn't listen. Her main fear of me is that I'm not eating properly, and I just prove her correct there at breakfast. But
don't let her listen to this though. Although I would say that cheeselets are an extremely tasty breakfast. So why
honestly,
not?
I'm addicted. And now they're coming out in the picnic boxes, and like every time this year, I'm getting like my entire family is like, if you find them, stock up, like find them for me. But yeah, it's maybe not the most nutritious start to the day, but there we go.
All right, cheeselets or yogurt and raisins.
Yeah. Not all
Very
together.
Balanced, a balanced breakfast. Okay, what show on Netflix did you binge watch embarrassingly fast?
Oh, that's a good question. So my absolute favorite one, I got obsessed with it during lockdown, like everybody else did, when there was nothing else to do, was Mindhunter. So it's kind of about the beginning of the FBI. So anything with that kind of psychological twist. I mean, I am the cliche millennial in the true crime, and I'm like, oh, what's wrong with all these people? But Mindhunter was so good. I think they only did a couple of series, and they keep kind of promising maybe a third, but nothing yet. But yeah, I did that in about 2 or 3 days, just kind of, well, there was nothing else to do. But that was, yeah, that everyone go and watch it. If everyone watches it, then maybe they will make a third series. But yeah, the beginning of the FBI and all that kind of profiling and where all that came from.
This is on my list because I like a little crime series as well. So that is on our list to watch. So I'm really glad that you recommended that because I wasn't quite sure.
So good. I really, and Jonathan Groff, who's in it, because he also plays the King in Hamilton. So it's really strange seeing him do this. I think he's known for musical theatre a bit more, and then in this kind of really straight role about kind of creating that psychological profiling of kind of the worst that humanity has to offer. He's amazing. But yes, watch it, put it to the top of your list, definitely.
I will do that. Third and final icebreaker question: if money and time were no object, what would you be doing right now?
Traveling. 100%. But no, that's misleading. I wouldn't be. I'm not ever going to pretend I'm the kind of traveler with a rucksack. I need something on wheels. So I would be going places. I would be going places with the suitcases, not having to worry about what the cheapest airport transfer is, how to get places. I would be having a lovely time. I'd never see winter again. Definitely. I'm not a winter person. I'm loving the sun. So from a very selfish point of view, rather than trying to fix the rest of the world, I would be just following the sun all year round, having a lovely time.
That's fine. It's your money, it's your time, you do whatever you want with it.
I would also donate to charity and save the whales. There you go.
Saved it. that was a classic millennial answer.
There you go. Yeah.
All right, Cate, what is your unpopular opinion? What have you got for us?
I feel like this is quite unpopular. I'm also a little bit worried that if I say it, that anyone listening is straight away going to be like, well, she has no idea what she's talking about, so I'm not going to listen to the rest of this.
Don't worry, honestly, there's been some real shockers on here. You can't,
okay.
You'll be good.
So my unpopular opinion is that I think that tea, coffee and alcohol are the most disgusting things on the planet. I do not understand how so much of this country is powered by one of those three things. I can't stand the taste of any of them. So I have lived my life without any of them. Maybe I've got the taste palette of a child. Although there's also a possibility I'm a super taster, so I'm just very sensitive, and probably a superpower. So actually, it's all you guys that are wrong. I've just evolved out of those things.
I love this, but this is how you look so fresh-faced as well, because you don't drink the coffee.
Well, I don't know.
Don't drink the alcohol. So I mean, we are in the wrong.
It helps more on the money point of view. I'm not gonna lie. That definitely makes a night out cheaper. But no, any fresh facedness is down to my very complex skincare regime that I developed over lockdown. So that's where all the money goes instead.
Okay, not on avocados. Right, listeners, tell us how you feel about Kate's unpopular opinion. This is, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one. My husband's actually teetotal at the moment, so he's gone off. He's just gone off alcohol. Just doesn't like the effects that it leaves him with. It gets it really affects his mood. So it's just cut it out, and it's quite liberating, really, isn't it?
Honestly, do you know what I mean? Because I've had it all the way through, so it made uni quite difficult, because as soon as anyone will meet you, the first question you're having to answer is, why don't you drink? But definitely in the last kind of five years or so, it's not a question I get so much anymore. It's just say, oh, okay then. So I think there is a general trend in people, for whatever reason, like there's a whole range of reasons, like trying not to drink for a little while, or deciding they don't want that in their lives anymore. It's a lot more common. So I don't have to answer that question so often, because the next bit was always, it's okay, I've got something you'll love. But
it shouldn't be a question. Should it? But it shouldn't be a question, should it? It's just, I don't drink. Okay,
how it is. I can just about manage like the super sweet, if it's really sweet, so just a lot of sugar, then I can just about nurse kind of one cocktail for but it will take me 6 hours or so to drink it. It's not something that I enjoy, and it goes down nice and smooth. So unless somebody's bought it for me because they're being nice, it's not something
and then there's the guilt of having to drink it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just there sipping like, no, I don't need another one, this is really nice, thank you.
Okay, right, tell us how you feel. I don't think that's too unpopular at all, Kate. Kate, you are the Customer Experience Programme Officer at Historic Royal Palaces. Yes. I want to know about this role. Like, tell us what it involves, because I'm guessing it's very broad.
Yes, you could say that. So I work for Historic Royal Palaces. I actually work across all 6 sites. So I'm based at the Tower. The Tower is my home, and I've got the most experience at the Tower because I originally started in Heritage in operations at the Tower of London. But now, I work across the Tower, Kensington Palace, Hampton Court, Banqueting House, Kew Palace, and as well as Hillsborough Castle over in Northern Ireland. So I'm kind of there looking across kind of customer experience and initiatives across those sites, trying to make sure that we've kind of got that one standard for HRP and what customer experience means, customer service means from an HRP point of view. So it is quite broad. It's anything from kind of creating our customer service standard that I did with colleagues in operations, goodness, like 2 years ago now, I think, just before we reopened from the first lockdown, right up to kind of more strategic things about kind of where we need to aim for, where we need to focus our attention, having a look at a lot of customer journeys and understanding the end-to-end journey for all our sites. I am the only one in my department. I am a department all by myself, so there's a lot of kind of advocating for what customer journeys mean and joining up bits of the organization, not entirely by myself. I have the support of my visitor experience group, which is our operations directors, our public engagement director, and our commercial director, and all the ops teams across the sites, who I think in operations, how complex the journey is, you see the whole thing. So I think they're the teams I work most closely with, as well as kind of overseeing things that are related to visitor feedback. So there's so much data, we have so much information on our visitors and what they think, what they feel, what their expectations are. So there's a lot of kind of work with our customer insight manager about how we best collate that, use it, spot the trends. And also I just get deployed really to any kind of projects that might need I suppose a little focus on customer experience, and I pipe up with annoying things like, that's
you've not thought about this
journey, so can we not do that? So I kind of get involved. I'm so lucky I get to get involved in basically anything that needs that kind of customer focus, which in a visitor attraction is nearly everything. So it's an amazing role, and in a great place.
What a job.
It's
what
honestly,
a job.
I landed on my feet with this one. It's not too bad.
Well, I mean, firstly, they are not terrible places to go to work every day, are they?
No,
I mean,
I know, right?
what a place.
It ruins you for life though, because if anyone says to me now that you have to go to work in like a normal office block, it's very much, yeah, so where's the armed guard outside the office door? How many drawbridges do I have to go over? How many portcullises are there to go under? None. Okay, no, well, that's boring, isn't it?
That's not for me then.
Exactly. Like it's like, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm a palace only person these days, but no, honestly, it's absolutely stunning. And actually kind of the previous governor who worked here, who kind of gave my first chance at the tower, so it's been very much a kind of mentor to me. But I always remember him saying that if you ever come to work one day and you're not kind of just awed by where you are, then it's time to leave and let somebody else come in, because you should just never forget the sites you're working out and the kind of connection to history that they've got. It's I still get the kind of, oh my god, the White Tower, like it's still an absolutely, I've been kind of coming here on and off 8 years with different roles and everything, and I still don't get over it.
That's amazing. So you still get the goosebumps, you still get
completely, you know, you just walk under like an archway and there are little faces carved into the arch, and they've seen every monarch since, you know, Henry III, every single monarch we've had. Like some of the biggest events in world history have happened within these walls, or at Hampton Court with Henry VIII, or Banqueting House, Charles I was executed outside Banqueting House. So, you know, some real key history where it happened moments have happened at our sites, and it's amazing that we get to kind of invite people in to share those stories.
Well, how did you get, because you said that this, you know, you've really landed on your feet, this is like a dream role. What did you study beforehand to bring into this role?
So I started, like, uni wise, I did English and history degree, and then because I kind of graduated in the last recession, so I ended up working in schools in Essex and kind of as a PA. And at the time, honestly, that's all I wanted to be. I was just like, I'm happy being a PA. I like organizing things. You know, PAs are, it's a brilliant job if you like organizing. You're just kind of sitting there really understanding the nuts and bolts of things. And then I saw the PA job advertised for the governor of the Tower of London, and the Tower has been honestly like my favorite place in the world since I was about 5 or 6. I have like a picture my grandmother took of me at the gates, like kind of just like, let me in. So getting it was a complete dream come true. But I got it based on the fact I just sat there and said, yeah, I just want to be a PA. That's my dream. I just want to be a PA. I've got no other aspirations. But within 9 months, I had kind of made the most of an opportunity to move into ops. And then from then on, I was just like, this is what I should do. I love making stuff happen. I love working here. I love heritage. This just fits who I am. This is what I want to do. So I was there for a little bit. I was lucky enough to run an event called the Constable's Installation. So every kind of 4 or 5 years, the Queen nominates her representative, the Tower of London, which is known as the Constable of the Tower. We've had one since 1078, so it's not a position that many people have had. And we had this big kind of ceremony that the Lord Chamberlain comes to install the constable. And I was fortunate enough to be the first woman and the first civilian to run that installation in 2016. Gosh. And I mean, it's still one of the best days of my life, but I peaked really, really early. Like I peaked at 28. That's it now. Like, it's all downhill from now on. But kind of doing that kind of mix of operations and big ceremonies and events. I was kind of pinched by English Heritage to be their event manager for a couple of years, actually working with Lucy Hutchings, who I've then been working with at Hampton Court.
Oh, lovely.
So that's been really nice. And then I kind of kept an eye on what was happening at HRP, because it was very much like English Heritage is an absolutely fantastic organization, but I'm very London centric. So yeah, when this role came up, I kind of had the right combination of, I've been in ops, I've been on the front line, you know, I understand, I care about what that experience looks like. So yeah, I applied for the role, and the mothership called me home.
Oh my goodness,
I came back to the tower.
so amazing.
But so I've had a lovely time the last 8 years. I've been very lucky.
That is phenomenal.
I've been here for the last 4, and it's been such a learning curve, because it's, we originally started with a program called Seamless and Distinctive, which is around customer experience, and that's now become a little bit more kind of business as usual. But I've learned so much in the last 4 years, and really cemented that customer experience is the bit I love the most, that I really want to.
You've left those the PA dreams, you've left them behind.
I know. They've kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit, and then now it's just like, I want to run things.
Bigger dreams.
Exactly.
Bigger dreams.
Absolutely.
Right. So I've got so many questions for you based on what you just talked through, but we spoke a couple of weeks ago, and you talked to me about the customer journey mapping exercise that you went on with KPMG, and I was really interested in this because it's really similar to what we do in digital. So we look at user journeys, and we plot out where people are going to go on the site and what journeys we want to take them on, and it sounds very similar, but obviously it's in the real world. And I kind of wanted to get you to talk that through, tell us how you go about that, and what was the need for it to start with.
So customer journey mapping is such a vital tool for understanding the entire end-to-end journey for your customers. So for example, at kind of HRP sites, we had departments who were kind of looking after individual touch points of our customer journey, particularly on site. But in order to make the journey as seamless as possible and to kind of be the best possible experience, it's essential that all of those touch points link together beautifully, and they don't kind of jar, that one department wants to do things this way, another does it this way, and it just gets a bit kind of jarring to go through that journey. So the customer experience overall suffers a little bit. But when you're looking at a customer journey map, it really gives you that picture of, this is where our customer starts, and this is the kind of thing that they're feeling, these are emotions, this is what their expectations are, and then takes you through every single touch point right until the end, which is, in our case, they've gone off site. What kind of post-visit relationship do we have with them after that? So for us, it was very much the ambition to visualize that, to map that out, to get I suppose like a Bible of customer experience, where everything is in that one place, so we can all be working to the same document, we can all understand the same thing, have the same vision, and really start kind of picking out those areas that we could focus on to improve what is, don't get me wrong, already an excellent visitor experience. We have some of the most amazing sites, some of the most amazing front of house teams, so it's going from good to great, rather than, oh my God, this is horrendous, we need to fix this. Mm-hmm. So it's just where those little areas are that we could push ourselves kind of up a little bit more. So we kind of got the help of KPMG to do that, because it was not an approach that HRP had done previously. So we needed that kind of outside consultancy advice on how to go about that. And we worked with them on kind of the processing of gathering all the information, the data and insight that we had, which was a mammoth task. We have a lot. We have all sorts of kind of surveys that are done about different exhibitions, or exit surveys. We have like the Alva benchmarking. There's so much information that we have just dotted around at different places. So trying to bring that all together to understand the picture that our visitors have been telling us. The information is there, what they want to see, what their expectations are, motivations, what they need on site. So it's all that kind of information. We also ran workshops and did service safaris. So that is essentially taking a cross-palace team and kind of giving them a role for the day, giving them a persona. So for example, you're the Walker family today. So get your mind, we did some empathy mapping to really get people's minds into, I'm a family. I've got a young child and a slightly older child. What do I need? Have I got a buggy? Have I got to take things? Am I going to be changing rooms? All those kind of considerations. So we gave people different personas so they could really kind of connect with some of our general groups of visitors. This is one of the frustrations, because obviously you can't cover everybody. You do have to be very general, and there are going to be gaps in that. But some of that you can kind of cover off later. But yes, we did these service safaris and got our teams to do a visit and to start looking at things from a visitor's point of view.
That's so interesting. So you've got your own internal team that you take through this process.
Exactly. And it was always important to make sure that we had other members of staff who aren't used to that particular site. So with KPMG, we did Kensington and Tower of London. And it's one of those things with the best will in the world, like you get blindness with your own site because you see things day after day. You know what you're trying to focus on, what you're trying to improve. But sometimes you just stop seeing some of the things, like stop seeing the wood through the trees kind of thing. So it's really helpful to get those other members of staff that aren't there every single day. And it's fascinating what comes out, and it's so useful for members of staff to kind of really see like, oh yeah, why are we expecting us to do that, or that's actually quite difficult, why are we doing it like that? It's so useful. And honestly, I mean, even if it's not a process, the customer journey mapping is not a process that other organizations want to go through, I completely recommend doing service safaris. It really opens people's eyes. But we also kind of had a lot of one-to-one conversations with members of staff from across the organization, and one of the most important groups in that was front of house. Visitor feedback is essential in understanding what our visitors want, and their opinions on stuff. But a lot of stuff that we've got, for example, in our CRM, where visitors have contacted our contact center, that's either the stuff that they absolutely love and is amazing, or the stuff that's really upset them. There's a massive gap in the middle there that our front of house team see every day in terms of kind of minor irritations. That's just a kind of, it puts friction in, but it's not enough for someone to complain about. We need to look at that stuff as well. That's the kind of everyday stuff that just kind of jars with you a little bit. You just think, oh, that was a bit rubbish, and that stays in you. That it might not be that something you want to complain about later on, but it's still that you're going to go to your friends and sort of say, yeah, it was good, I mean, this bit was a bit annoying. So it's so important to engage front of house teams to kind of, as spies on the ground, to know what they're always asked about, to know, do visitors always go the wrong way in this bit? Is it clear what room they're in? Is it clear where the toilets are, if the map's okay? So we did quite a bit of work about talking to those guys as well. And it's just kind of collating all of this data that everybody's got. It's just a matter of putting it together and putting it into this kind of tool that shows you what's happening at each touch point. The most valuable thing, I think, that the snapshot that comes from it is the emotional journey of the customer. So obviously what you want in an ideal world is that they come in feeling okay and they leave thinking, this is the most amazing thing, like that was great, I loved every kind of connection I had with that organization. And that's what you're aspiring to, as well as everything nice and green and happy in the middle. But that emotional journey kind of graph really gives you a snapshot of, oh, okay, well, things are dropping a little bit here. What's going wrong here, or what can we improve here, or how has something earlier on not set this up properly, and is this, if we fix this, is this going to affect later on? So it's honestly, it's such a valuable tool to really get that idea of what our visitors, what our customers are actually going through.
That's epic though, isn't it? I mean, like the amount of information that you need to have for that, and to do it really well too. Like how long does a process like that take?
So in terms of kind of the data we already had, obviously, we were talking kind of years of data. Customer journey mapping, you can kind of either do it as a snapshot of the current state, or you can be a bit more aspirational and do it as a snapshot of kind of where you want to get to. It's most useful really to have a kind of combination of, well, to have two. But for us, it was doing an in-depth audit of all the bits of information we had, making sure that KPMG had access to that, and we went through it with them about what this means, what this doesn't. Kind of, there's also that kind of complication of was something exceptional happening 3 years ago, that means that skewed that data a little bit.
Right.
So what can we look into that? Is there kind of justification? So for example, if our ticketing system had a blip, and we get loads of complaints about that, we know that we've solved that, we don't need to worry too much about that, but we maybe need to record, it's annoying if the ticketing system has a moment. But overall, I mean, it took us maybe about 6 months to do with KPMG, and kind of getting through all these stages of looking at the visitor stuff, looking at the employee stuff, looking at which departments feed into which parts, and also just identifying all the touch points. I think we've ended up with something around 70 to 80 individual touch points from start to finish on a on-site journey. So that's only what we're talking about when visitors actually come on site. We also have, like you were saying earlier, like digital journeys that our digital engagement team look at. We have membership, we have schools, we have people with accessibility requirements, they'll have a different journey. There's all sorts of different things to layer on top of that, that you can kind of factor in. But it was very in depth and just absolutely fascinating, and a really good opportunity to kind of get everyone on board the same thing as well, and to get kind of departments that kind of sit alongside each other but maybe don't overlap so often, or we're the same as many other organizations, multi-site organizations, that sometimes silos are a kind of a barrier, and doing things like this really starts to show everyone how they're part of the entire, and that cross departmental working is really, really useful.
I guess it's re-engaging the internal team with the visitor as well, isn't it? Putting them in, because you put them in their shoes, and you mentioned empathy. What was it you called it?
Yeah, so we did some empathy mapping, where essentially we kind of, before we sent people out on that service safari, we gave them these personas, and we gave them kind of questionnaires about, what do you think this person or this group of people is looking for? What do you think their main considerations are? What do you think their main worries are? What do they need on site? What are they trying to get out of it? I mean, KPMG created us some personas that kind of combined things like our cultural segments, as well, and kind of making sure we've got that overlap between motivations and needs. Personas are a key part of customer journey mapping, and kind of creating, say, it's the kind of general average visitor, which is incredibly difficult for a lot of sites, because we've got,
they don't exist, do they?
Exactly. Do you know, we've got people from all over the world, or just different kind of backgrounds, so that is a difficult thing. But I think one of the other things to kind of bear in mind with customer journey mapping is you don't want to get kind of analysis paralysis, I suppose. You don't want to kind of get into that mindset where you're kind of analysing so much that you don't just get something done. It is so important to get started, because the thing with customer journey maps is they're not static documents. That's not it. You don't create one and then, oh, we're done now, this is what it looks like. You take it, you learn from it, you update it, you review it, you take kind of opportunities from it, you look at how else you can track and wonder about trends. So if you've improved something, you kind of keep an eye on feedback, see how we improve that, so it keeps moving. That's its value, is that it's a live document that you keep updating to see how the journey moves and where the weak points get to, and eventually you end up with a just 5 across the board and you're like, now you're done. Now you can be like,
I'm sure that is not the case.
No, I don't think
so. What were, you went through this process 6 months actually? That was interesting, because I thought that you were going to say it was longer. I was expecting you to say it was a year's process. So 6 months. What were the outcomes from that, and what have you had to improve because of it?
So I think one of the biggest outcomes, because I should also say that the delivery of this got pushed forward slightly because the end of the world happened. So we kind of got to spring 2020, getting to the point where like we're just about to understand everything there is to know, and then our visitors disappeared.
And then the world went,
yeah, exactly.
No, you're not.
Like, okay then, so there's no customers to improve the experience of right now. So that kind of obviously put a pause on things for a little while. But one of the kind of biggest things I think it gave a focus to, which is one of the major outcomes, was, like you say, kind of helping people refocus on the visitor, on the customer. What it meant was we were able to demonstrate that operations really have ownership of that entire journey, and we have kind of, I mean, they're a bit more than subject matter experts, but like our interpretation teams, our curatorial teams, they support ops, and ops support them to deliver. But it was just really important that we started moving towards an organization where operations control and own that end-to-end journey, so that someone does, and so that there's consistency in delivery, so that we aren't kind of switching back and forth between different departments, which internally we can work like that. That's fine. We understand about how it's this person in interpretation and it's this person, but we don't want our visitors to feel like there's effort between touch points. They see it as historical palaces. That's what we need to present it as. So it made sense for operations to really kind of I suppose step up and take ownership of that, and our structure now kind of reflects that as well. So I think in terms of kind of outcomes, it was a lot of kind of realization of how best to run a customer experience. And also just the fact that like I said, we had so many kind of different overlaps of things, and it kind of starts drawing out as well the themes throughout the entire organization, but also those places where the palaces are different. And there's a balance to be struck there about they have to be different. They tell different stories. They have different personalities, but we want it to be an HRP standard. So how does that apply to each of the different sites? So after we did Tower in Kensington, we've also got a ticketing journey map as well. I've just done the Hampton Court one. So for the first time, HRP has done a customer journey map by themselves. So I went out and did the Hampton Courts customer journey map. We've just come to the conclusion of that and fed back to the workshop group. So kind of having that learning about how to approach these things, how to do it, how to be sustainable on our own, so that we don't have to keep going back and saying, we've got another one, can you help us do another one? And hopefully we'll be able to do Hillsborough, and then go back and start, as I said before, like layering the schools and community visits, absolutely layering accessibility. A colleague of mine made the really good point that should be a priority for us, and 100% agree. Some of our sites are incredibly challenging for people with different access requirements, because they weren't built that way. Tower of London in particular was built to keep people out rather than welcoming 2 million or so visitors. So we've got there's challenges around that, and I think any other historic site would sympathize with that. So I think it just kind of focused us on what we can do for customer experience, and that it's an ongoing thing. It's not we'll do it, we'll fix it, we'll move on. But also just the fact that I think I kind of said briefly before that it's not about fixing individual touch points. And kind of the best example, I guess, I keep wheeling out this one example to everyone to demonstrate it, is where we've kind of, as everybody has, moved to a more online ticketing model. Because that's the fluid expectations of customers. That's what people expect. They want to be able to self-serve and be able to sort themselves out. Great, we're brilliant, we're on that, people can do that. But the problem is that if we're moving to that model and the majority of our visitors are booking online, when they turn up at site, if they come to the Westgate at Hampton Court, the Westgate at Tower of London, they haven't had a chat with our great admissions team, so they haven't had a chance to orientate themselves. They haven't had a chance to be given a map and be told what's going on that day. They kind of had been able to skip that and go straight to a gate. So it's kind of okay, so we've made that bit better and more seamless, but now we've moved a problem further down the line. So it's understanding the changes to one touch point and how that impacts the rest of the journey. You can't just fix one thing in isolation and think, excellent, that will be up and green now, without considering its position in the rest of the journey, I think.
That is such an excellent point, isn't it? You can't fix one touch point without it impacting another. And how do you monitor the impacts when you do? Yeah. Oh, goodness. I was going to ask you, what was your biggest learning from the process? But it sounds like one of the biggest learnings was being able to do it yourself.
Yes, I don't have to do it now. No, it absolutely was. It was so valuable to kind of to watch the guys from KPMG, because in terms of kind of consultancy support, they are some of the best. KPMG and Onward are some of the best in that kind of area of customer experience. So it was amazing to kind of go through that, also kind of understand some of the psychology behind it, and kind of what we're trying to achieve and why, and kind of watching them watching our visitors up on Tower Hill, and understanding how they're moving and how we might be able to improve that, and where the hesitations are, and what might be going on. That kind of understanding that psychological factor was so useful, so useful for me, kind of taking it on board and taking it further for the organisation.
Do you think as a result of this as well that the internal teams work better, even though this was a process to help improve the customer's experience? Do you think it's actually helped the internal teams?
Oh, completely. 100%, because it's now something we've got to refer to, and they can see where they fit in. And that's not to say that people didn't realize that before. And it's absolutely not to say that everyone was just working in their own little kingdom before. But I think it gives a central focus point. I say the end of the world got in the way a little bit. So we are looking now to now we've got the Hampton Court one, and we're putting in place the process for reviewing our kind of customer experience backlog documents that we now have for each palace, to understand, we need to get on with this element. So for example, Hampton Court, we need some better signage in the car park, so we can get on with that first. That's a priority. We know that that's a pain point. So we've kind of got these lists, and we're putting in place this process for reviewing those, keeping us, like, holding ourselves to account, making sure we're getting on with things as and when we can. The same with basically, I guess, every other kind of museum, gallery, heritage attraction. Resource and funding is an issue for us at the moment. So it's just understanding kind of where those priorities are. But yeah, understanding that process and how we review it, and bringing all of those departments in, and kind of working together on how we fix things or improve things, I think is definitely going to be getting better and better as we go on. We're kind of about to relaunch it in a way now that we've got the Hampton Court one as well, because it's taken a while for everyone to come back to work, to find their feet again. I don't know about anyone else, but it took me a long time to be able to focus for any more than 5 minutes at a time. So now that we're back there and it's starting to look a bit more normal, we can really start kind of launching that, making sure the entire organization understands what we've got, why we've got them, and how we intend to use them. So that'll be kind of a job for this summer and into the autumn.
What a great experience, what a great process to go through. And it's had so many like incredible outcomes.
Yeah.
What would be your top tips for any organisation that's about to embark on something similar?
I think that the most important thing is involve your colleagues and involve them early. A lot of people, obviously there's always going to be demands on kind of time and energy, but making sure that people understand early how important they are to, and how important their work and their departments are to understanding everything is vital. And organizations can only be stronger for it. I'd also say, in terms of kind of visitor attraction organizations, front of house teams, making sure that their voice is absolutely heard, because it's one thing for somebody who's in the back office kind of tapping away to start coming in saying, we think this and we're going to fix it with this. If you haven't actually asked the guys who are out on the ground answering the question of where the toilets are for the 50th time in an hour. So I think that was the biggest things for me, was making sure in to whatever extent that you do customer journey mapping, because you can do a kind of pretty informal version, you can take it to the extent that we did, but it's make sure that your front of house teams are heard, and are a big part of it, I think.
Good tip. Weirdly, that's where we go and start as well, from a digital perspective, because people often think that you just talk to the marketing department because that's who you're engaged with, that's who's brought you on. But for us to understand where digital can support the organisation, we need 100%. To understand what challenges front of house are having, and then bring the two together. That's that. Completely. So glad. I knew we'd be aligned, Kate. I knew we would. Right. We need to talk about Superbloom. I mean, spectacular. You're in the midst of it right now. For anyone who's watching or anyone who's listening to this, not watching the video, why aren't you watching the video? Because we're fabulous. Kate's in a high-vis jacket right now because she's actually on site.
Yep.
In the midst of Superbloom.
Absolutely, yes. I'm out there as event coordinator today, so running around looking after our volunteers and our visitors, making sure that everything's running smoothly, and everyone's happy, which is a lot easier in beautiful sunshine like this.
It is a glorious day, and it is an absolutely spectacular showpiece what you have there, so congrats on pulling it off.
Thank you so much. I mean, I can't take really any credit for it. Honestly, it's our interpretation teams have been working on this for about 3 years. It's been a really long build up to the project. The work started on site in about October. And then there's been a lot of kind of, since I think late March, early April, a lot of kind of staring at soil, kind of like, are we okay? Are they coming?
Please work.
Anything? Is something going? So yeah, they've done I honestly, I can't even explain what an amazing job they've done. And there's something like 20 million seeds planted in that moat. So that the scale of it cannot be underestimated. But yeah, we got there. We opened officially on the 1st of June, just in time for the Jubilee weekend. And it was, it's something that we learned from our commemorations of World War One, so both the poppies and the flames, that the public really liked having the tower as a kind of a central place to come and take part in national events. So that's kind of where the thought came from about celebrating the Queen's Jubilee, with that kind of change in the moat. Again, we've upgraded from ceramic poppies to the real thing. There's a wonderful scattering of Californian poppies down there at the moment, so it's looking absolutely stunning. We've got everything from different smells going on. There's music down there, which honestly is so zen. It's my favorite place to be. I'm just going walk through, like, I'm so calm right now. There is no city of London out there. There's no traffic. I'm just in a bed of flowers in this amazing music. But yeah, it's been going really well. And yeah, it's one of those times where you just realize how strong your teams are. We've got kind of event coordinators who all have other jobs that have volunteered to come out and help on either days off or alongside their regular jobs. We've got volunteer coordinators who are mostly our front of house teams, who, as anyone will know, like in a summer, it's so busy on site anyway. And then for them to offer to come and help in Super Bloom on days off is incredible. So it does, without being too kind of gooey about it, it makes you really proud to be part of an organization that kind of has the vision to do this and then moves forward and actually does it. And we also have a slide, which is
oh well, I mean, if you weren't sold before Kate mentioned the slide, obviously. I mean, big tick. I'm there.
Come and slide into the moat. It's the most joyous thing. The kids love it, obviously, but my absolute favorite thing has been watching adults. We've had grandmothers going up and going down, and it just, like, I want to be like them. I want to still have that kind of, I say, playfulness when I'm a little bit closer to the end of my run on this earth.
Phenomenal.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great event, and it's just something completely different in the city. And it represents the biggest change we've made to the moat, or not HRP, but has been made to the moat since the Duke of Wellington drained it in I think 1843. So since then it's been mostly turf. It's been kind of used for other practicalities like allotments in World War II and so on, but it hasn't been changed to this extent since then. So it's a big mark in kind of the history of the tower as well as kind of acknowledging the Queen's achievement and just kind of helping the biodiversity a little bit of City of London as well. One of the best bits is, as you're walking through the flowers, if you stop and look, they're moving. There's so many kind of pollinators and wildlife in there. It's amazing. It's a very kind of wholesome, grounding, life isn't so bad kind of place to be.
Yeah, I mean, Kate, you've absolutely sold it absolutely beautifully.
Everyone come,
everyone go visit. I mean, how could you not after that? Kate, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you. We always ask our guests to recommend a book that you love, that you'd recommend to our listeners. What have you got for us?
So this was so hard, honestly. I was sat there looking at my bookshelves because I've got everything from basically every book that's ever been written on Henry V, because I'm a geek on that side of things. I think one of the ones that kind of really woke me up to understanding the psychological side of customer experience a little bit more was Thinking Fast and Slow, which most people in this kind of environment I'm sure have read or heard of. But it's a great way of kind of understanding what's going on in people's minds when they're just going around their everyday life. So that's been so helpful in terms of working out how to make things more seamless and making sure that people can do things automatically and it's intuitive and obvious, which means the bigger part of them is free to enjoy and be happy and be excited about where they are. So I think that's definitely kind of a big one for me. But from a kind of personal side of view, if I'm not looking at heritage, then whales and dolphins are my absolute passion. And there's a book called Leviathan by Philip Hoare, who's also a kind of whale fanatic, and it's just his relationship with understanding the oceans, understanding kind of the history of whales, of whaling, the changing relationship between humanity and whales. it's my absolute favorite book. So yeah, if you want something a bit out there, a bit random, then Leviathan is an amazingly well written book.
That sounds beautiful. Well, I mean, neither of those books have been recommended on the podcast before either.
Oh, okay, that's okay.
This is really interesting.
So I was just like, I feel like everyone would have said that one because it's the chapters are really short. It is quite it's kind of a concentrating read, but absolutely, it really kind of sets out how humans think and why we are as we are. So I think it's really, really valuable in terms of thinking about customer experience.
Yes, great. I'm absolutely amazed that nobody has recommended it before. But right, okay, so Kate has blown my marketing budget like most people do. So we'll give you 2 books to win.
Thank you. So, sorry about that, everyone.
You know what to do, listeners. Head over to our Twitter account, find this episode announcement and retweet it with the words, "I want Kate's books," because there's 2.
Yeah, sorry.
And you'll be in with a chance of winning them. So go over and do that. Kate, it's been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Honestly, I'm such a geek on this stuff. So it's so nice to have an excuse to talk about it.
I've loved it. Well, feel free to come back on anytime and talk more about it because it's been a delight.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Skip the Queue. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It really helps others find us. And remember to follow us on Twitter for your chance to win the books that have been mentioned. Skip the Queue is brought to you by Rubber Cheese, a digital agency that builds remarkable systems and websites for attractions that helps them increase their visitor numbers. You can find show notes and transcriptions from this episode and more over on our website, rubbercheese.com/podcast.